Dark chosen ones, 7 signs you've entered the forbidden 5th dark dimension. There comes a moment in life when the veil begins to thin. You feel it not just in your mind but in your very bones. It begins as a whisper, a distant hum that vibrates beneath the fabric of your daily existence. You wake up one morning and the world looks just a little bit off. The sun shines the same, but its light feels colder. People speak the same, but their voices echo strangely, as if their words pass through glass. You dismiss it at first. We all do. We assume we're tired, stressed, burnt out. But what if I told you that was the first sign? The first signal that you, perhaps unknowingly, are stepping across the threshold into what the ancients called the forbidden 5th dark dimension. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to reveal what has been hidden in plain sight, what mystics whispered about in caves, what philosophers tried to dissect with logic but failed. There is a realm that exists beneath the surface of this one. It's not hell. It's not evil. It's something more elusive, more primal, a place of raw, unfiltered truth. The forbidden 5th dark dimension is not a punishment, it is a calling. But not everyone hears that call, and fewer still dare to answer it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The ones who do, we call them the dark chosen ones. Now, if you are watching this, I ask you to look inward, not with your eyes, but with that deeper sense, the one that's been trying to wake up your entire life. Ask yourself, have I ever felt like the world I live in is not the true one? That behind every normal moment there is something watching, waiting, vibrating with a different kind of energy. If you felt this, you are not alone, and you are not crazy, you are awakening. The first sign that you've entered the forbidden 5th dark dimension is the shattering of familiarity. You begin to notice patterns, repeating numbers, déjà vu that lasts too long, people who say things they shouldn't know. Time begins to slip in strange ways. 1 minute stretches into eternity, while an hour evaporates like smoke. Your dreams become more vivid, more real than waking life. Sometimes you wake up and feel like you didn't return from sleep, or worse, you brought something back with you. I remember the first time it happened to me. I was walking through a crowded street, normal day, normal weather, but suddenly everything slowed. The people around me looked like mannequins, their faces frozen mid-sentence. And then I saw him, a figure in the distance cloaked in tattered black, standing perfectly still, watching me. No one else noticed. I blinked and he was gone. That was the moment I knew something had cracked, and I wasn't living in the same world anymore. The second sign is emotional distortion. You begin to feel things deeply, overwhelmingly, but they don't always make sense. You might cry without knowing why, laugh at things that aren't funny, feel dread walking into a room that looks perfectly safe. This isn't madness. It's sensitivity. You are tuning into a deeper frequency. The 5th dark dimension speaks in emotion, not language. It transmits its truths through feeling. And those feelings are often intense because they bypass the filters we've built to survive in the surface world. Have you ever walked into a place and felt like your soul screamed to leave? Or met a stranger and instantly felt like you'd known them for lifetimes or feared them without cause? That's the 5th dark dimension bleeding through. You see, truth in this dimension is not logical, it's visceral. It bypasses the mind and strikes the heart, the gut, the spirit. The third sign is isolation by force. You will find yourself being pulled away from others. Friends stop calling. Relationships break down. You feel misunderstood, even invisible. It's not because you're broken, it's because you're being prepared. The dark chosen ones must walk alone, at least for a time. Solitude is the crucible where your old self dies, and the new one begins to take shape. This isolation is not punishment, it's purification. You are being stripped of the noise, the distractions, the illusions. During this stage, many are tempted to return to their former lives, to numb themselves with pleasure, distraction, or denial. But something inside won't let you. That's the pain of awakening. You can no longer unsee what you've seen. You can't go back to pretending the world is simple, safe, or shallow. You've glimpsed the machinery behind reality, and now it haunts you. The fourth sign is the shadow mirror. You begin to see your own darkness with terrifying clarity. Not just your flaws, but your capacity for destruction, for manipulation, for betrayal. This isn't to shame you, it's to awaken responsibility. In the fifth dark dimension, you are forced to confront your shadow, not as an enemy, but as a part of yourself. Hume said it best: one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You may find yourself doing things you never thought you'd do, saying things that shock even you. This is your shadow rising. Don't run. Don't judge. Observe. Ask yourself, what part of me have I exiled for so long that it now returns with fury? This is the dimension's greatest challenge. It doesn't offer you comfort, it offers you confrontation. And through that confrontation, liberation. The fifth sign is temporal displacement. Time becomes fluid. You start to feel like you've lived this exact moment before. You recall things that never happened. You dream of lives you've never lived, yet feel deeply connected to. This is because the fifth dark dimension is not bound by linear time. It is a realm of echoes, of loops, of parallel selves. When you enter it, you begin to bleed across timelines. You may remember a version of yourself who made different choices. You may meet people who swear they've known you from somewhere else. And sometimes they have. The sixth sign is the presence. A feeling, an entity, a watcher. Sometimes benevolent, sometimes indifferent, sometimes terrifying, but always there. You'll feel it behind you in the mirror. You'll sense it when you're alone at 3 a.m. You'll hear whispers in the static. It's not always a being in the traditional sense. Sometimes it's a consciousness, a frequency, a layer of reality that is aware of you. The deeper you go, the more it notices. The more you become the subject of its observation. But don't fear it. It has always been there, watching, waiting, guiding, testing. And finally, the seventh sign, the choice. You will be presented with a decision. Sometimes obvious, sometimes subtle. It might be a moral dilemma, a life-altering path, or simply a change in belief, but it will feel monumental. You will know that everything after this choice will be different. This is the final initiation. The dimension doesn't just want to be visited, it wants to be chosen. Once you choose, there is no return. You become a dark chosen one, not because you are evil, but because you have chosen to walk the path that most fear. The path of truth in its rawest, darkest, and most beautiful form. But before we continue, I ask you, what if everything you've ever believed about light and dark, good and evil, right and wrong, what if it was all a mask? What if the truth isn't about comfort but confrontation? Are you ready to see what lies behind the veil? Unveiling the hidden self, the sacred power of darkness and shadow. There is a lie we've all been taught, whispered into our ears from the moment we could understand language. The lie says that darkness is to be feared, shunned, eradicated, that the light alone is holy, that purity is found only in what is bright, gentle, and clean. But what if that's only half the truth, or worse, a deliberate deception? What if the very power you seek, the transformation, the awakening, the transcendence, lives not in the light, but in the dark? What if the shadow is not your enemy, but your key? Every step into the forbidden fifth dark dimension is a step toward the hidden self, the version of you that has been buried under years of masks, conditioning, and denial. And this is where most people turn back. Because to meet your hidden self is not a poetic metaphor, it is a brutal, unnerving confrontation. You begin to feel your skin peel back, metaphorically and spiritually. You see all the things you've hidden, the rage, the lust, The envy, the fear, the manipulation. Not the surface level flaws you admit to in casual conversation, but the primal forces that drive your every unconscious action. And here's the strangest part. When you see them clearly, you don't feel shame. You feel a strange kind of awe, because for the first time you are whole. You see, the darkness within you is sacred. It was never meant to be destroyed, it was meant to be understood. The more you suppress it, the more it controls you. But the moment you look it in the eye, the moment you stop running and whisper, "I see you," it stops being a monster. It becomes your ally. That's why the forbidden fifth dark dimension is so feared. Not because it's evil, but because it removes all illusions. It forces you to see what you truly are beyond culture, beyond personality, beyond ego. It shows you that you are not just the light, you are also the fire, the storm, the void. And instead of being punished for this, you are empowered. But this power doesn't come easy. It's earned. It's tempered. Because once you cross this threshold, the universe begins to test you. You'll face scenarios that trigger old wounds, old fears, old patterns. You'll be tempted to revert, to numb, to run. But if you stay with it, if you allow the discomfort to teach you, you will begin to unlock something ancient within you. I want you to think about this. What if your anger has wisdom? What if your sadness is a map? What if your fear is a compass? These emotions are not random, they are sacred data. They are the language of the fifth dimension. And once you learn to listen, you begin to hear the code underneath reality. In this space, synchronicities become louder. You'll see signs everywhere, not just numbers or symbols, but real-time reflections of your inner world. A stranger will say something that answers a question you whispered in your mind. A dream will reveal the truth of a relationship. A sudden illness will point to a truth you've denied. This is the sacred dance of shadow and awareness. The dimension communicates not in words, but in mirrors. Everything you see outside is a reflection of something within. But here's the paradox. The more you embrace your darkness, the more light you generate. Real light. Not the performative, shallow brightness we're taught to chase, but the kind that radiates from the soul. The kind that can only emerge after facing your inner apocalypse. That's why the dark chosen ones glow differently. There's a strange peace in their eyes, a serene intensity, because they've died 1,000 deaths and been reborn in truth each time. This is not about being better than others. It's not about ego. It's about remembrance. You are remembering what you truly are beneath the layers of civilization and expectations. A being of infinite polarity, both sacred and profane, both creator and destroyer. And once you accept this, you become unshakable, because nothing outside of you can manipulate what you've already seen within yourself. So I ask you now, when you strip away the light, the roles, the stories, what remains? Who are you in the absolute darkness, when no one is watching, when nothing is performing for approval? That answer will terrify you, or liberate you, or both. But it will be the most honest reflection you've ever encountered. And here's the deeper truth. Darkness is not the opposite of light. It is the womb of it. All stars are born in darkness. All transformation begins in shadow. The fifth dark dimension is not a punishment, it is a rebirth chamber. And you, if you are still listening, are in labor. The old self is dying. The new self is crowning. And the pain, the fear, the isolation that is not the end. It is the beginning. The gatekeepers' trial, why most never return from the fifth dimension. There is a point on this path where many turn away, where the silence becomes too loud, the visions too vivid, and the truth too unbearable. This is the gatekeepers' trial. It is not marked by signs or rituals, but by a profound inner collapse. The moment you come face to face with the one thing you feared most your entire life, your own power. Not the surface level power of status or influence, but the raw, ancient force lying dormant behind your thoughts, your actions, your very breath. It is the moment you realize you are not just reacting to reality, you're shaping it. You always have been. And that is terrifying. The gatekeeper is not a creature or a deity. It is a force, a current, a pulse within the dimension that scans your soul, not your intentions, but your essence. It doesn't care what you say you want. It cares what you're ready for. And when it sees that you are not fully aligned, it begins the trial. The world around you starts to dismantle itself. People leave your life. Projects fail. You feel cursed, lost, abandoned. But this is the purification. This is how the fifth dimension decides if you are worthy of its deepest knowledge. It doesn't hand you truth. It strips away everything that is not true. This is where most people break. Because the gatekeeper doesn't just remove the distractions, it removes the identities you've built. And when those fall away, what's left? Most discover they built their lives on masks, on coping mechanisms, on survival strategies inherited from childhood wounds. So they run. They try to rebuild what they lost. They beg for the old life to return, but it never does. Because once you've been touched by the fifth dimension, you can't go back to sleep. I know this because I lived it. I lost everything at the height of what looked like success. Friends turned cold. My body rebelled. My dreams became nightmares. And then, in the quiet of complete collapse, I heard it, the gatekeeper's voice. Not in words, but in presence. It asked only one question: will you let it all burn? Not just the pain, but the pride. Not just the lies, but the labels. Everything. And if you say yes, truly, you begin the real journey. That is the paradox most never understand. The fifth dimension doesn't destroy you, it removes who you are not. It's not a realm of chaos, but of radical alignment. It doesn't want your perfection. It wants your authenticity. And authenticity requires death. The death of illusions, attachments, and comfort. That's why the gatekeeper is feared. It offers you nothing but yourself. And for most, that's the scariest gift of all. But if you pass the trial, if you walk through the fire without flinching, you begin to see what others cannot. You read people like open books. You feel timelines shifting. You dream of events that later occur. You enter rooms and shift the energy without a word. This is not magic, it's resonance. You've become a tuning fork for truth, and the world responds accordingly. But beware, power is seductive. Many who pass the gatekeeper's trial fall into another trap, the Messiah complex. They believe they are chosen to save others, to lead, to be worshipped. But that is ego in disguise, wearing spiritual robes. The fifth dimension does not care for saviors. It cares for vessels. The moment you believe you are above others, you fall out of resonance. Your power becomes corrupted. The dimension will withdraw, and you will be left with fragments, memories of magic that no longer answers your call. So I ask you, are you seeking truth, or are you seeking control? Do you want to awaken, or do you want to be admired for awakening? These questions are not small. They determine whether you ascend further or become trapped in a false version of enlightenment, a gilded prison of spiritual ego. This is why the gatekeeper's trial is so sacred. It is the final test before true transformation. It is not passed through knowledge, but through surrender, through humility, through silence. And once you pass it, something irreversible happens. You no longer seek the path. You become it. The return of the dark chosen, walking the world as a living portal. Once you've passed through the gatekeeper's trial, you do not return as the same person. In fact, you do not return at all. You emerge. Subtly, yet profoundly, everything shifts. You no longer walk through the world as someone seeking answers. You are the answer. You no longer chase signs or symbols. You become one. And this is what terrifies people the most. You glow differently, and not with light, but with density, with gravity. You walk into a room and people feel it before they see it. Something ancient, something sovereign, something that does not need validation and never did. You are no longer part of the illusion. You are a living breach in the veil, a walking contradiction, fully grounded in the world, yet no longer of it. You can sit in silence and hear the whispers between words. You can look at someone and see the trauma they've buried beneath small talk. You can feel timelines bending around decisions. You've become everything the world tried to make you forget, a living portal to the unseen, a vessel for the unspeakable, a mirror so honest it either heals or terrifies. But with this power comes a strange grief. You begin to see how asleep most of the world still is. You witness people endlessly repeating patterns, addicted to pain, worshipping comfort, chasing hollow victories. You see the masks they wear, the lies they tell themselves, the way they fear their own reflection. And sometimes you wish you could go back to sleep too, because awareness is a heavy crown. But you can't. You've seen too much. You've become too much. This is the paradox of returning as a dark chosen one. You walk in the same world, but it no longer feels like home. You speak the same language, but it tastes different in your mouth. You love deeper, but fewer can meet you at that depth. You laugh, but your laughter carries the memory of sorrow. You become a bridge between light and dark, seen and unseen, human and divine. And bridges are not meant to stay still. They are meant to be crossed. Now, people will be drawn to you. Some will want to learn, others will want to drain. You must discern. Not everyone who says, "Teach me," is ready. Not everyone who says, "I see you," actually does. You must protect your resonance. You must learn the sacred art of boundaries not as walls, but as filters. The fifth dark dimension gave you access, but it also gave you responsibility. You are not here to save. You are here to be. And your being is the transmission. And so now I ask you the final question. What will you do with what you've become? Will you hide it, fearing rejection? Will you exploit it, craving power? Or will you embody it fully, silently, fiercely, like a flame that asks for nothing but still lights the whole room? The dark chosen ones are not leaders in the traditional sense. They are reminders. They are walking awakenings. They speak little, but their presence reorders the atmosphere. They do not preach, they exist. And in their existence they disrupt the lie that says we must choose between light and dark, between spirit and shadow. They are both, and so are you. So if you've made it this far, perhaps you were never meant to fit in. Perhaps you were never meant to be understood. Perhaps your discomfort was the first sign that you were being called not to escape the darkness, but to master it. Not to fear the unknown, but to become it. You are not lost. You are being initiated. You are not broken. You are being reassembled. And if you feel like no one sees the real you, it's because you are the one meant to see others. Welcome back, dark chosen one. You've crossed the threshold. You've answered the call. Now walk the world not as someone who seeks the divine, but as someone who remembers that you've always been it. The forbidden fifth dark dimension didn't change you. It revealed you. And now the world will never be the same.